Discover the incredible transformation of a homeless man who surprised a waitress after 24 hours. Jake huddled beneath the bridge, the rain soaking through his frayed jacket. A world once vibrant fading into gray around him. Once an artist celebrated for his intricate pieces, he now felt like a ghost, stumbling through the rubble of his past. Every day he crossed paths with Liz, the waitress whose simple kindness pierced through the gloom of his existence. He watched her serve others, adorned in her apron, often offering him a plate of day-old pie or a warm cup of coffee. But each time she did, he grappled with a wave of shame, knowing that he was merely a shadow of the man he used to be, a respected creator, a family man. The juxtaposition tore at him, a relentless tug-of-war between gratitude and despair. As Jake drifted through the streets, the storm brewed within him. He stumbled across an old workshop, the peeling sign half hidden by tangled weeds. Seeking refuge, he entered, prepared to be swallowed by the darkness surrounding him. Instead, something shifted inside, a pulse, a rhythm. The room thrummed with a past alive with color. Brushes lay forgotten, palettes stained with shades of his former self. It was intoxicating, a siren call that beckoned him closer. Sliding his fingers over the rough wood of an easel, he hesitated, the weight of years crashing upon him, threatening to drown him in an ocean of self-doubt. What did he have left to offer? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The moment he picked up the brush, there was a rush of adrenaline, but his hands trembled. Memories flooded back. His daughter's laughter when he painted her a rainbow, the elation of opening a solo exhibit. Pain choked his throat. Each stroke was both liberation and condemnation, an invocation of the life he lost. He painted through the night. Vibrant hues danced across the canvas, each one pulsating with raw emotion, anguish, hope, despair. The following morning brought a clarity he'd long forgotten. Vibrant sunlight poured through the workshop, revealing the masterpiece crowned by turmoil. Each splatter of paint echoing a rebirth that hadn't yet taken form. But as he stood there, gazing at what he'd created, self-doubt crept in once more. What would Liz think? Would she see value in his pain, or simply the stigma attached to his appearance? The clock ticked, relentless and hard. The art exhibition loomed on the horizon, a crucible for judgment, where hearts would be laid bare. Would his journey to redemption be celebrated, or would it be met with disdain? As he held the canvas close, he felt both exhilaration and fear, a tempest brewing inside him. Every fiber of his being screamed to run, to hide from the scrutiny of the world, even Liz's compassionate gaze. He stood at a precipice, breathing in the weight of his fears, confronted with the choice that could change everything. Would he dare to step forward or sink back into the shadows from which he'd emerged? With the canvas pressed against his chest, Jake stepped back and exhaled deeply, releasing the tension building in his chest. Every moment spent fretting over his past felt like an eternity, yet the present was a juncture buzzing with potential. He needed to make a decision, not just about the artwork, but about the trajectory of his life. He remembered the freeze frame of Liz's smile from the previous day, the light in her eyes when she offered him a cup of coffee, a small gesture that felt monumental. Would she still look at him that way when she saw him as he once was? Or was he only worthy of her compassion as a homeless man cloaked in shadows? He fought against that notion, knowing that her kindness was not just pity, it was an acknowledgement of his humanity. Could he, in turn, acknowledge his worth as more than a mere silhouette? Fueled by an inner resolve, Jake returned to the easel, hands steadier this time. The brush became an extension of his thoughts. Doubts poured onto the canvas, blending into a whirlpool of colors. Striking strokes conveyed not only pain, but also an inkling of hope. He tore through the day, creating with fervor, lost in the rhythm of the moment. For the first time in years, his heart was full as memories ebbed and flowed, his daughter's laughter echoing alongside the vibrant colors, resembling a promise of new beginnings. With evening settling in, Jake knew he had to take the next step. The local art exhibition still loomed in his mind, but transforming it into reality felt daunting and exhilarating at once. He felt like a phoenix emerging from ashes, yet the risk of being gracefully burned again loomed large. What if judgment awaited him? What if the laughter he once cherished turned to mocking jeers? He left the workshop and faced the outside world, each step tinged with both purpose and uncertainty. People passed him by, lost in their lives, unaware of the storm within him. Should he speak to Liz tonight? Should he reveal his creation? The idea of sharing it felt both thrilling and terrifying. Arriving at the diner, he caught a glimpse of Liz through the window. She was humming to herself, wiping down a table, her apron a splash of brightness against the evening shadows. Instead of saying anything, he stood outside, wrestling with a surge of emotion threatening to spill over. His brushstrokes weighed heavy in his mind like unuttered words. The masterpiece brewing within could transform his existence, yet vulnerability simmered barely beneath his skin. As he swayed on the sidewalk, he realized this wasn't merely about winning approval or recognition. It was a chance to reclaim who he was, a powerful artist reborn. Was he ready to put that part of himself on display? To confront the world? To expose his soul? To share with Liz the part of him he feared was long gone? Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped toward the door, ready to either unveil his creation or retreat back into solitude. He paused, caught in the moment between courage and uncertainty, wondering if the next significant decision was about to emerge from the depths of his clarity or simply dissolve into the shadows again. With a shaky breath, he pushed the door open, feeling the warmth wash over him alongside an unexpected thrill of possibility. The moment had come to confront his fears, but what else awaited him inside? The bell above the door jingled as Jake stepped inside the diner, his heart racing like a runaway train. The familiar scent of coffee and warm pastries wrapped around him like an embrace, stirring memories of simpler times. He scanned the bright room, eyes landing on Liz, who was now engrossed in conversation with a regular customer. Jake hesitated at the entrance, the air thick with the weight of expectation. Would she see him as he wished to be seen, or only as the shadow of his former self lingering in the depths of her sympathy? His grip tightened on the canvas bundled under his arm, the weight of its potential pressing against him like an anchor. In the back booth, a couple laughed over their late-night meal, their joy tinged with the sweetness of shared moments. Instantaneously, it gnawed at Jake's resolve. He was acutely aware that he stood at the precipice of transformation. The decision to share his art was less about the painting itself and more about the authenticity it represented, a tangible piece of his soul, raw and exposed. Summoning courage, he approached the counter, heart pounding, and Liz's laughter stopped mid-sentence as she looked up at him. Her smile, warm and inviting, eased the tension coiling in his abdomen, but vulnerability clawed at his throat. "Hey, Jake," she said, brushing her hands on her apron, her voice bright as sunbeams breaking through clouds. "What's up?" For a fleeting moment, he wanted to retreat, to allow the shadows of insecurity to wrap around him. But instead, he cleared his throat, forcing words out against the tide of doubt. I have something I want to show you." The moment he spoke, he felt the gravity shift, anticipation sparking in Liz's eyes. "Oh, what is it?" Jake stood taller, the canvas feeling lighter, as if it lifted some weight off his shoulders. "It's a painting I've been working on. Something more than just daubs of color. It's me." Something in her gaze softened, curiosity weaving into her expression. "Can I see it?" Realizing he had crossed a threshold, Jake nodded and took a deep breath, the air becoming transformative like the brushstrokes on his canvas. He unfolded the painting gently, careful to reveal the vibrant swirl of colors and emotions that intertwined with his journeys, joys, and sorrows. "Oh, wow!" Liz gasped, stepping closer to examine the artwork. "Jake, this is incredible!" Her enthusiasm was genuine, the brilliance of his colors reflecting in her eyes. "It's so full of life! The depth here!" A rush of elation flowed through him, igniting a spark. He listened intently as she analyzed his strokes, her fingers grazing the canvas gently, respect transcending curiosity. He realized then that sharing his creation had stripped away the layers of self-doubt he had clung to. "I've always believed you had this in you," she said, her admiration palpable. "You should display this somewhere. It deserves to be seen." Jake felt the internal reservoir of confidence swell as she continued to praise the work, but nestled beneath was a gnawing realization. He still didn't know how to reconcile his past with this newfound hope. The fear of judgment lingered, surfacing like ghosts from the shadows he had tried to escape. What if nobody cares? What if... The words escaped before he could second-guess himself. Liz paused, meeting his gaze, and for the first time offered him an unwavering honesty. "You can't let fear decide your future. You're so much more than what's happened to you. This can be your start." Her words resonated, urging him to confront the lingering doubts that had taunted him since he first stepped into the world of color. Could he really embrace this part of himself, risking exposure for the sake of authenticity? Jake looked back at the painting, then at her, and felt the stirrings of an invitation, the potential to redeem himself. But would courage triumph over fear? Would he be able to take the leap and offer himself up for critique in the larger world beyond the diner? As her gaze held firm, Jake felt the ground shift beneath his feet, an impending decision brimming on the horizon. Could he cement this moment into action, or would he shy away and clash with his past once more? The upcoming days whispered challenges poised before him, each an uncharted territory of risks he had to confront. With Liz still gazing expectantly, the emotional storm rumbled inside him. Would he seize the moment? The next significant leap stands just ahead, and in that flicker of uncertainty, he knew it was time to face something far more daunting than his own fears, the judgment and expectation waiting in the world outside the diner. Jake felt tethered to his canvas, both terrified and exhilarated by the powerful mixture of emotions whirling inside him. Liz's words echoed, urging him to catalyze change. This can be your start. He had been afraid of many things: judgment, failure, and rejection. But what existed beyond that fear? Possibility. Taking in the hues and contours of his painting, he saw more than mere color. He saw a reflection of his journey, tattooed on fabric. Vulnerability didn't feel like a burden anymore. Instead, it was a bridge he could cross if he dared to step forward. "Maybe you're right," he replied, the uncertainty evident in his voice, though determination flickered within. "I just don't know where to begin or how to make it happen." The words tumbled from his lips as a realization dawned. Hoping for change wasn't enough. He had to act. Liz's encouragement ignited a small flame in him, coaxing forth the question of his next move. Could he display the painting? The thought was both thrilling and petrifying. It would require more than courage. It demanded action. "Have you thought about an art show?" she suggested, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You could find a local gallery or community space. They sometimes host new artists. It would be a perfect match." "An art show," Jake murmured, testing the words, savoring their taste on his tongue. He imagined gathering his peers, presenting his creation to onlookers. This was new territory, and the butterflies in his stomach threatened both to lift him and to crush him. The seeds of doubt took hold again. But what if nobody cares? The nerves tangled in his throat, constricting his ability to voice the next vulnerable truth. What if they don't see the depth I see? What if it's not enough? Liz leaned closer, her gaze probing yet comforting. "You'll never know if you don't try. Winning or losing isn't the point. What matters is that you've taken the leap. You owe it to yourself to find out." Could it be that the leap was the most significant part of this journey? Beyond acceptance, beyond criticism, lay a purer form of personal victory. For the first time, Jake felt that revealing his heart might outweigh the fear of exposure. Her words echoed in his mind, casting shadows lighter than before. It wasn't simply about the display. It was about daring to live his truth in front of others. The realization stood stark and undeniable. He was not simply a failed artist. He was an individual ready to reclaim his voice. Suddenly, his mind mapped out steps, the process of framing his painting, searching for galleries, perhaps facing rejection. But wasn't every artist a little bit of a masochist? Feeling the adrenaline pulse through his veins, he knew this was a choice he was willing to face, despite the budding anxieties. "Okay, I'll do it." The declaration felt more concrete than any he had made in years. A commitment forming roots deep in his resolve. "I'll find somewhere to show it." Liz's eyes widened, and a triumphant smile spread across her face. "That's the spirit. I know you'll surprise everyone, and yourself. Just think about it. This painting could lead to more, and you can really branch out." As her enthusiasm washed over him, Jake noticed the delicate shift in his confidence. What had felt like only whispers of hope now roared relentlessly. Each stroke on the canvas represented a gaining foothold, each layer of paint a step toward becoming the man he aspired to be. But in the rush of action, a new question loomed dark and heavy at the back of his mind. What if this was not just a leap of faith into the art world, but a leap into an even deeper exploration of himself? Would he truly confront the layers of his past if he stepped into the spotlight? Still, the idea of remaining in the shadows was far more terrifying than facing the light. The next day would bring challenges and possibly triumphs he had yet to predict, and he felt the weight of that unknown looming closer, ready to greet him with both opportunity and risk. "Let's do this," he murmured to himself, glancing one last time at Liz, who still looked at him with unwavering belief. His heart raced with anticipation mixed with uncertainty. But as he prepared to step forward, he felt the stirrings of a reality he longed for. With newfound determination, he knew it was time to confront the haunting specters of his past and provide them with the exorcism only truth could bring. The world outside the diner was just as magnetic and frightening as the colors on his canvas. How far would he go in pursuit of authentic expression? The leap awaited him, a leap into a festival of truth, stings of potential failure, and triumphs of self-discovery. All he needed was to embrace it. As dawn broke the next morning, Jake stood in his small studio, inhaling the musty scent of old paint and varnish. The long-neglected space felt renewed with purpose, filled with possibilities just as vibrant as the paint squirted haphazardly across his palette. Each smear of color ignited a new sense of resolve.
His heart raced, balancing excitement against the heavy weight of uncertainty. He had made a commitment, and now it was time to ignite that promise with action. He scoured the internet, searching for galleries and community spaces that showcased emerging artists. Each click of his mouse felt like a step closer to liberation. But as he read descriptions, doubt nibbled at the edges of his enthusiasm. Would they accept him, a self-proclaimed failure? Or would they see him as just another desperate soul borrowing the glow of talent? Yet in that moment, he recognized something distinct within himself. It was a quiet strength rising from the ashes of his former apprehensions. He wasn't merely fishing for validation, he was on the cusp of a transformation. This art show, he realized, could not only be about his painting, but a testament to his journey of self-acceptance. Setting his mind firmly on finding a gallery, he began crafting a pitch, rifling through his thoughts like an artist searching for the perfect brush.
He reflected on the themes of his piece: vulnerability, struggle, and an innate desire for acceptance. Writing them out felt cathartic. Each word reaffirmed his identity as an artist. As the day progressed, anticipation morphed into urgency. He felt a suppressive pressure edging him onward. He had to make contact. A part of him whispered to keep hiding, to await a better moment. But the louder voice urged him to act now. It felt futile to procrastinate what he truly desired. Picking up his phone, he dialed a gallery whose reputation had sparked his initial interest. His hands trembled, and he almost hung up. But then he inhaled deeply and pressed on. "Hi, my name's Jake, and I'd like to inquire about showing one of my pieces." His voice was steadier than he felt inside. The gallery owner, a middle-aged woman with an inviting tone, listened patiently as Jake described his painting. He infused his passion into the words, drawing the listener into his vision. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and Jake held his breath. Would it be an acceptance or a polite rejection? "Well, Jake, I must say your piece sounds intriguing. We are looking for fresh faces, and I'd love to see your painting if you could bring it in next week." A swell of triumph washed over him, electrifying every nerve ending. "I will," he said, with a conviction that surprised even him. As the call ended, he realized he had crossed a threshold he had long feared. The first step into the light of exposure had been taken, and with it came a torrent of exhilaration and anxiety intertwined. But within that whirlwind of emotion, an unexpected realization struck him. The exhibition was a platform to confront the deeper layers of his life. The struggles he had internalized, the fears lurking in the shadows, and how they had twisted his perception of worth. What if, by sharing this piece, he could also share his story? His artwork wasn't merely a reflection of his skill. It became a narrative of survival, defeat, and ultimately resilience. Fueled by this revelation, he began to envision how he would prepare for the event. The details swirled in his mind, crafting a story he would accompany alongside the artwork, dedicating time to refining his presence, and even rehearsing how to discuss his inspirations. An urgency pushed him forward, propelling his professional evolution in a way he had never anticipated. Yet the prospect of public scrutiny started to sharpen the edges of his anxiety. Would he be able to articulate his story without faltering? What if the audience saw not an artist, but a man tangled in his past mistakes? This fear tightened its grip on him, a stark reminder of the shadows he wished to escape. As evening arrived, Jake stood before his canvas, the vibrant colors stark against the white backdrop. Each brushstroke recalled a memory, an emotion that had built up over time. Once a symbol of fear, it now felt like a challenge and an opportunity for rebirth. In the rush of progress, one thought continued to echo within him, tethering him to the present, yet propelling him into the future. What other layers of himself was he about to uncover in the process? The challenge ahead was not only about the art, it was about grappling with the remnants of his past and embracing everything that came with authenticity. With the gallery visit on the horizon, the time had come to not only showcase his work, but to face everything he had masked for so long. Could he be brave enough to tell that story? This next leap wouldn't just be into the art world, it would be a leap into the unknown depths of self-discovery. The day of the gallery visit loomed closer, and with it a rising tide of anticipation mingled with trepidation. Jake found himself in an insistent rhythm, each day bleeding into the next, where preparation became a relentless whirlwind of canvas, color, and contemplation. His studio, once a mere shelter for forgotten dreams, was now alive with the echoes of his internal struggle, methodically charting a course towards transformation. As he stood before his canvas, the sunlight filtering through the grime-streaked window, illuminating the colors in a muted glow, Jake wrestled with the deeper implications of his exposure. Would the story he crafted alongside his painting resonate, or would it crumble under the weight of scrutiny? That question gnawed at the back of his mind, distracting him from the labor ahead. Deciding to break the cycle of self-doubt, he took an unconventional step. He enrolled in a local workshop tailored towards speed painting and storytelling for artists. The instructor, a dynamic woman who epitomized creative energy, challenged her students, encouraging them to reflect on their narratives as they painted. Jake entered the first session with stomach churning, battling the urge to flee, yet equally compelled to stay. The workshop was a cacophony of voices mingling, laughter bubbling like an unexpected spring, each person immersing themselves in vivid shade and expression. The energy flowed through him, sparking an internal motivation he had not anticipated. Surrounded by other artists, each reserving their own canvas space for vulnerability, his apprehension began to dissolve. They shared stories of losses, fears, and aspirations, and it shocked Jake how each confessed struggle mirrored his own. In that space, the fragile walls around his heart began to shatter, revealing a willingness to let others see his scars. With each shared experience, he discovered a surprising resilience in not only his own story, but in the collective tapestry they wove together, one that boasted a raw authenticity he had craved. Compelled by newfound courage, he took a risk. During the next session, he unveiled the inspiration behind his current piece, stripping his narrative to its raw components, the moments of despair that fed into his art, the battles with overwhelming self-doubt, and ultimately the power of pursuing one's truth. In expressing this publicly, he felt his perception of vulnerability shift. It morphed into a unique strength, something that could resonate with others. Feedback flowed from his fellow artists, invigorating and constructive, nudging him toward angles of depth he had yet to explore on his canvas. Would this exchange further shape his ability to articulate his journey? Would it build him into a braver artist than he'd ever allowed himself to be? Excitement coursed through him as he returned to his studio, breathless from the experience. He took his brush to the canvas with renewed fervor, embodying the voices that had echoed in his mind. But as he painted, a new challenge arose. Would he maintain this connective honesty within himself as the gallery visit approached? Could he withstand the harsher judgments of those unfamiliar with his journey? As he tackled these questions, the layers in his painting transformed, depicting not merely a struggle for acceptance, but an intense pursuit of self-identity. He found himself curating an evolving piece that pulsed with life, a metaphor not only for his art, but the burgeoning heart of a man intent on reclaiming his worth against all odds. Just days away from the gallery, the urgency to present not just his artwork, but his authentic self intensified. The summit of this challenge ignited conflicting emotions. Fear danced alongside hope, and uncertainty thrummed at the edges of his determination. In that moment of introspection, one piercing thought branded itself in his consciousness. Was he prepared to bare his soul to the world? The dread of judgment, the anxiety of acceptance.
Could he embrace it all, step out from the shadows, and emerge into an uncharted landscape of self-worth? This question hung thick in the air, electrifying the suspense of what awaited him, making it clear that the time for revelation approached, where the canvas would not just showcase paint but reveal the unvarnished truth of who he had become. Would he embrace it, or retreat into the comforts of anonymity? The day of the gallery event arrived with the weight of 1,000 expectations pressing down on Jake. He awoke in a haze of emotions. Anxiety, excitement, and an undercurrent of something like rebellion coursed through his veins. His mind spun with the thoughts that had relentlessly occupied him for days. Would anyone understand the stories buried deep in his brushstrokes? Would they perceive the depth beyond the colors, or merely glance and move past? Stepping into the studio, he faced his canvas, a testament to his transformative journey. The vibrant hues clashed vibrantly against one another, each stroke a reflection of his inner turmoil and burgeoning courage.
The artwork shimmered with potential, but so too did the fear of judgment loom over him like an oppressive cloud. He took a momentary pause, breathing in the older, musky scent of linseed oil and turpentine. His sanctuary now felt like a Bermuda Triangle of self-doubt and growth. This was the canvas he had bared his scars upon, and yet, as the hour approached, he felt an unsettling urge to retreat into the shadows, away from the prying eyes that would soon scrutinize his vulnerabilities. Wrestling with the familiar beasts of self-rejection, he recalled his workshop experience, a vibrancy that crackled from shared stories. The artists around him had become a family, each raw exchange of hardship morphing into his own metamorphosis. This was the unity fueled him even in the solitude of his studio. He could not toss aside their encouragement like crumpled paper. Instead, it settled deep within, igniting a stubborn fire of determination. As he stood in front of the canvas, the challenge blazed brighter. This was not just a piece of art. It was a mapping of his identity, the very essence of a man clutching for authenticity against the tides of anonymity. Each layer he had painted told of a desire for connection, illustrating not simply what it was to exist, but what it meant to truly live and be seen. In these final moments before the gallery, he made a conscious decision. With steady hands, he altered the final strokes, adding hues that represented hope, vivid greens that sprouted from the underlying chaos of darker tones. This was his narrative, chaos transforming into something worthwhile, a journey toward realization and acceptance. But as he stepped back, the self-doubt clawed at him once more, provoked by the knowledge that exposure to the world minutes away would invite scrutiny like he had never known. Could he handle it? Would their perceptions magnify his innermost fears or reflect the triumph he felt within? In those moments of indecision, the thought of retreat loomed large, tempting him like a siren song. Yet deep within, another voice began to rise, a whisper that urged him to let go of the fear of the past, and step boldly into the light he fought so hard to create. Jake glared defiantly at the canvas before him, a protective guardian of painful joys and heart-wrenching sorrows. He made a promise to honor the thoughts that swirled in his mind, to embrace the reality of who he had become, and to share it, all of it. The anticipation of the gallery had become a beacon, one that would either lead him to triumph or bind him to his past. With a steely gaze and newfound resolve, he turned and walked toward the door, ready to step out into the world, knowing that the moment of truth awaited him. He was no longer just Jake, a struggling artist in isolation. He was a soul prepared to unveil every intricate layer of his being. And as he crossed the threshold, a question crystallized in his mind. Would the unveiling of his story transform not only his perceptions, but the very fabric of those who watched? The gallery doors awaited, and with them stood the possibility of both judgment and acceptance. Would he emerge unscathed, or would this be the moment that truly defined him? The ambience inside the gallery pulsed with electric energy as Jake stepped through the entrance. The gentle hum of murmurs and laughter enveloped him, blending with the clinking of glasses and the faint scent of fresh-cut flowers. This was a world far removed from the chaotic cocoon of his studio. Yet the stark reality of his vulnerability hit him instantly, driving a spike of uncertainty into his gut. He spotted familiar faces, fellow artists and patrons mingling and discussing their work. Each cluster felt like a cozy campfire where whispers of creativity bounced between passionate souls. But Jake hung back, becoming a mere observer, a ghost detached from the warmth around him. His heart raced, pounding insistently against his chest. As he scanned the walls adorned with paintings, anxiety wormed its way into his thoughts. The idea of sharing his own work felt increasingly daunting. What if people didn't get it? What if they dismissed it as mere splashes of paint instead of recognizing the journey behind it? The very essence of his struggles, the vibrancy of his life, encapsulated in color, now felt perilously exposed. Yet, amidst his growing turmoil, he noticed his own canvas, artfully lit, standing proudly in the midst of the gallery. The vivid greens shimmered in the light, undulating like a heartbeat, alive, pulsing with meaning. Reminded of the commitment he had made to share his truth, something clicked within him. Deep in his core, he acknowledged the transformative power of vulnerability. This was not just art, it was an invitation into his world. Determined to conquer his swirling doubts, Jake moved toward his masterpiece. The moment he approached, he felt a warmth growing inside him, a flicker of gratitude for each hardship that had brought him to this point. He was not alone. He carried the weight of everyone he had met along this path. The artists who dared to share, the friends who had encouraged him, and the very experiences that shaped him. As he stood there, soaking in the glances of curious visitors, a woman approached with an inquisitive look in her eyes. A subtle smile danced on her lips as she leaned closer to inspect the layers of paint. "There's something so raw here," she commented, her voice steady yet soft. "What inspired you?" Jake took a deep breath, the question igniting a shift in him. "It's about finding hope within chaos," he began, feeling an invigorating rush as he spoke. With each word, he untangled the narrative behind the colors, the struggles, the victories, the moments that led him to this very evening. He shared the essence of his journey, and with it, the revelation of his own resilience. The woman nodded attentively, her interest palpable. "I see it now. It's beautiful, really." Her words pierced through the cacophony of doubt that had surrounded him. The realization dawned that sharing his story was not merely about exposing himself, but also about connection, creating bridges where none existed. As the conversations flowed, other guests drifted closer, drawn in by Jake's infectious commitment to his narrative. He was surprised to discover that vulnerability was not just a weakness, it was a source of immense strength, inviting empathy and understanding. In that bustling gallery, surrounded by faces both familiar and strange, Jake felt a crack form in the wall of his insecurities. He remembered the warmth of the workshop friendships, the shared stories that had shaped him. Perhaps, just perhaps, his fears would dissipate in the light of authentic connection. But as he laughed and shared, burying himself deeper into this newfound community, a shadow flitted across his thoughts. Would he always be measured by this single moment? Would his future be tethered to how they responded tonight? He knew the answers could mold his journey ahead. As he left the circle of conversation, he caught sight of a woman standing alone, her expression as heavy with trepidation as his had been just moments before. He felt a familiar pull within, an urge to reach out and show her the power of unveiling one's truth. With a determined nod towards his own path, Jake walked toward her, ready to embolden another soul to embrace the light. What would that connection reveal? What new facets of himself lay waiting to be unearthed? As Jake approached the woman, he noticed the subtle tremor in her hands as she clutched a wineglass, staring blankly at the artwork around her. There was a rawness in her gaze that mirrored his own earlier feelings of isolation. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her lips pressed tightly together as if holding back unshed tears. "Hey there," he said, a soft yet genuine smile on his face. "Is this your first time at a gallery?" She blinked, caught momentarily off guard by his presence. "Yeah," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've always wanted to come, but I don't know. It felt intimidating." Jake nodded, feeling a sympathetic tug within him. "I know what you mean. It took me a while to gather the courage to show my work. It can be overwhelming." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if weighing his honesty. "You're the artist?" He gestured towards his canvas, more vulnerable in that moment than he had been all evening. "That's mine. It's about finding hope within chaos." The words slipped freely, resonating within him as he spoke. She stepped closer, curiosity igniting in her expression. "I like it. It seems alive." "Thanks," he replied, a sense of warmth growing in his chest.
It means a lot when someone recognizes the struggle behind it. "Isn't it scary, putting yourself out there?" she asked, her vulnerability surfacing with her question. "It is," he admitted, "but I found that most people are more understanding than I expected. You realize that vulnerability can build unexpected connections." He took a breath, recalling his own earlier hesitations. "What's holding you back?" She looked down, the light glinting off her glass, and after a moment she confessed. "I've always wanted to paint, but I'm afraid that people won't understand, that they'll judge me." Her words drew him back to his own fears, those shadowy figures that had loomed over his aspirations for far too long. "You know, I used to think the same way, but when I finally decided to create and share, I found support and connection in places I never anticipated. It might feel terrifying to start, but it can also be beautiful." Her chin lifted a fraction, and the corners of her mouth twisted in contemplation. "What if it's not good enough?" "Good enough is subjective. Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression. If you pour your heart into it, others will see and feel that." Jake felt a flicker of responsibility, no longer just an artist defending his work, but a guide, perhaps. The thought invigorated him, propelling him to draw her out of her shell. After a moment of silence, she finally replied, "Maybe I just need to try. I've thought about taking classes." "Start there," he encouraged, excitement weaving through him. "No pressure, just paint for you, without worry about what others think." Her eyes flashed with a glimmer of hope, and he could almost feel the weight she carried dissipating. "I might just do that. Thank you." As they continued talking, he felt a newfound clarity forming within him. The connection they shared, both born from vulnerability and empathy, illuminated his purpose. Supporting someone else in their artistic journey tethered him to his own revelations and strengthened his resolve to pursue his passion wholeheartedly. But just as the conversation bubbled with possibility, a familiar face emerged from the throng of guests, an old mentor, someone whose opinion he valued immensely. What would this unexpected encounter bring? How would the past intersect with Jake's transformative moment? Funded by a renewed vigor, he felt both excitement and trepidation as they locked eyes. The moment Jake recognized his mentor, his heart sank momentarily, caught between nostalgia and anxiety. This was the man whose insights had molded him in his earlier years, shaping not only his skills as an artist, but his perspective on life. The sudden appearance was a reminder of the dreams he had chased, dreams now clouded by a past overshadowed by struggle. Yet, standing here at the gallery, he felt different, transformed, ready to reclaim the narrative of his own journey. As the mentor approached, the crowd around them seemed to fade, the buzzing energy dimming to a singular focus. "Jake," he said, a genuine brightness in his eyes. "I never thought I'd see you again. This is quite the comeback."
Jake swallowed hard, almost surprised at the warmth in his mentor's voice. I wanted to show my work again," he managed, gesturing toward the canvas that had become a reflection of his rebuilt identity. With every atom vibrating in nervous anticipation, he felt propelled toward a confrontation not just with his past, but with the very essence of his artistic self. The mentor studied the painting, stepping closer, allowing the depth and vibrancy to envelop him. "This is incredible, Jake. It's raw and powerful. I can see everything you're trying to convey, the complexity, the rebirth," he remarked, eyes shimmering with recognition, appreciation evident in every word. Jake hesitated, a pang of vulnerability washing over him, but he pressed forward. I spent a long time lost, you know. I let my past define me for too long. But now I realize that it's about what I can create, how I can transform my experiences instead of letting them drown me." His mentor nodded, appreciation swirling in the air like brushstrokes on canvas. "You've transitioned from merely viewing life's obstacles to painting over them creatively. This is what an artist does, captures the struggle and reshapes it into something meaningful." Jake felt as if a weight had been lifted, the acknowledgement transformed into recognition, weaving a tapestry of validation that reaffirmed his path. Standing in front of his mentor, who had seen both his triumphs and tribulations, Jake felt a powerful clarity rise within him, solidifying his self-worth in an almost palpable way. "I remember the artist you were," his mentor continued, "and this evolution you've shown, this explosion of vibrancy, is who you were always meant to be." A swell of pride enveloped Jake, interlacing seamlessly with the echo of doubt that had once dictated his past. In that exchange, he found a profound realization. His mentor's acknowledgement served as an external validation, but ultimately, it was his own journey toward acceptance that truly mattered. "I've learned it's not just about showcasing talent, it's about sharing a story that resonates beyond the colors," Jake replied, fully embracing the depth of his truth. "This painting, this moment, it's for anyone who feels like they're lost in the shadows. I want them to know they can color outside those lines." His mentor smiled, an illuminating expression that lifted the last wisps of doubt clinging to Jake. "Then you've not only succeeded as an artist, you're fulfilling your purpose. Remember this moment. It's a testament to your growth, and I'm incredibly proud of you." As they exchanged ideas, Jake felt a bond rekindled that transcended mere mentorship. It blossomed into respect and shared understanding, bridging gaps long left unaddressed in his past. With every sentence, each note of encouragement and insight, his inner landscape continued to broaden, actually birthing confidence and clarity deep within him. He was no longer living in fragments, but solidified by every brushstroke and supportive conversation. This evening had stopped being about mere validation and instead had evolved into empowering connections, a mosaic built upon shared experiences and collective strength. In the thrall of this exchange, Jake recognized that he had truly crossed a threshold. He was no longer a ghost of his past, but an artist, alive, vibrant, and unafraid. He glanced back at his painting, positioned proudly on the gallery wall, and felt only elation. This wasn't simply a moment of personal victory, it was the affirmation of resilience woven beautifully into his narrative. With the evening drawing to a close and more guests flowing towards his work, he felt a sense of calm overwhelm him. They moved closer, seeking the story behind the colors, and he prepared to share. This was his achievement, his transformation, and raising his voice to amplify the stories that resonated within would be the culmination of his journey. As he began to describe the significance of the vibrant colors and the emotions conveyed through his work, a realization struck him. This was only the beginning.
The obstacles he had faced had shifted into opportunities, each hurdle a stroke on the canvas of resilience. Fueled by newfound confidence, he embraced the communal atmosphere, connecting with fellow artists and patrons alike. Each moment spent sharing invigorated his soul, reinvigorating not only his identity as an artist, but as a man committed to self-discovery. The opening night of the gallery had transformed into something beyond mere exhibition. It became a celebration of human spirit and an embrace of one's journey. As the night faded into morning, Jake knew his story would live on, not just as a memory, but as a beacon of hope for others navigating their hazier paths, beckoning them to embrace creativity and courage. Jake walked toward the half-empty gallery, a proud smile gracing his lips as he prepared to connect with yet another curious soul, more emboldened than ever. This was his moment, a moment not just to reclaim his past, but to expand his future. As he embraced the budding community around him, he realized brighter horizons awaited, and he was ready to answer the call. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about today's ending. And you need to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.